Voilà, so. Yeah, là, ça. Sanje, Cheda, Soji, Danjoba, Sanji, Sanje, Cheda, Soji, Daniel Jiao Chen, Daji Chenge, Sonanje, Jola, Sanje, Jo, Tayata, Bodhisattva, Tayata, Bodhisattva, Tayanta, Voilà, so that Namjin Nashi Kumo Juet, Simja Tamja to the Tojalana Machiba Sanji, Komara, which is Chine Tobacha, DH the Enbe Janjusem, Labjan, Sushi, and Nelson, Nawale, Shingo, Shimala, Tuwa, Tuji Shuma, no, Chikotu, and Kasu Power, the Takanjachi, Lodging Show, just Chibushwale, Sebe, Lodging Show, and Kasu Data, Juju, Kishun, Teshi, against sometimes.
And so, as we normally do, we begin by setting our motivation, which is to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to be of benefit to all sentient beings. And we know that in order to attain such a state, we must have an understanding or train inside, perfectly train in the trainings of the Bodhisattva. And in order to do that, we must gain a thorough knowledge of such trainings, and we're able to do that by being able to rely upon a dependable, unmistaken text, such as the that composed by the great master Shantideva, the mind training text known as the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. I am here to listen to some verses from this teaching here this morning.
And the community of the combat and to and it rank doing Nangala, and more and getting Zawi, Lama Yimbala, Naba, Tapia to the with the Tombashajet way set up.
So, as we normally do as well, we set up our meditation objective to connect this particular text with the meditative objective. And that means that we visualize in the space in front of us, in essence, our own root guru, in aspect that of the greatly kind and compassionate one, Shakyamuni Buddha. And that we visualize that the Buddha is actually present. So the saffron-robed monk one, the one with the right hand in the earth-touching mudra, the left in the meditative equipoise posture, holding Nam's bowl filled with nectar, and surrounded also with the whole of the merit field. What in the country no look at that, too much woman, so she has answered Komogo. What in the shed, what in the shed, what is it doing? Younger shoe your son, and it don't make it, and she will Omka, what Jamba Armor, to go home over Yigosum set up, to go Mule, and it was a part of Mabatuna, and she will have done the Yeshiva, and only the Jabba Chantan, Yeshiva Tip, Kasura, and the Tomashaja to be Nabala party. And only on go trilla much novel and me give a weekend what in the commission. So we can visualize the entire merit field there together with the central figure if we need to, in the kind of tradition of the master or the protector Nagarjuna, and only the figure.
No, that is some dumb object.
So yeah, we can just visualize the single figure of Shakyamuni Buddha. That's okay. So the figure that we visualize is marked at the 3 places. So Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart center. Now from that Hung at the heart center, light rays emanate, going out into the pure realms, inviting all of the wisdom beings and empowering deities. The wisdom beings come and dissolve into the central figure. The empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, which overflows at the crown and producing the figure of Akshobhya. And to surround our own selves, we visualize all kind, mother, sentient beings. And this including, of course, our own parents in this life and in previous lives, those who had through karma, we have a certain connection with. On the one hand, it can be that which is very friendly, so we have a feeling of love towards them, and those that are kind of in a neutral sense, where we feel neither one thing or another towards them. And then those through karma as well, so we feel a dislike or an aversion towards who we might term in common terms as the enemy. And so all of these are included in this term of all sentient beings all around us. And we kind of think that there is none left out. There's kind of without the exception.
아니 랑게 뒤나 세데 라마 투비아 고 송투 연데 제베 거네 아니 가서데 와 그다가 저제 지금 가서데 당에다가 이치기 때문에 모두 그때가 둥리 게되고 이렇게 어떻게 공부하셔.
And so our attitudes then are as follows in terms of regarding all of the sentient beings all around us. We see that they are mired in suffering, as related in the graduated path teachings, the different kinds of suffering related to the different classes of beings, etc. And so we are automatically then inspired to develop compassion towards them. Similarly, so when we look at the figure we visualize in front, regarding the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, we are overwhelmed with this feeling of faith, which is divided into pure faith, the faith of aspiration, and faith of conviction. And so we maintain these 2 attitudes.
orders 공부하셔. 아니 제가 랑게 타고니 심제 대다 단제가 리주스도 동안 녀시 발아야 지게 남죄들 말아서 민내 실체네. 아니 저배 구소도 유대 대시바. 아니 제네. 아니 나랑 저게 다 직가소데 다 간자 직가소데 덤배 심제를 그 동에게 나서다. 아니 저배 구소도 유대 제배 거네 삼로당다 디네시 랑타고 심제 탐제가 진능 신체네 봐 따니 아니 저기 때문에 고마제 요원이 돈을 치마로 삼사 심제 대다다 동가다 전에 집어를 저와 수제 저와 주제 저와 다기 지게 대다 전에 라마 투명 뭐 징게 납도스 심제 대화도 대외 주대 되는 치마를 대마 주제 대마 쇼체 대마 다기 대다 전에 라마 투명 뭐 징게 납도스 어떤 데제다 세메식으로 칸투도 삼로 따니 아니 대다 전에 라마 투명 뭐 징게 납도스 소들 고마셔.
And the sentient beings all around, though they are suffering, the sufferings relative to the realms that they inhabit, they are doing so with a human awareness. They kind of have awareness like that. And so therefore also they can look towards the central figure in front with these feelings of faith and conviction as well. And that we, regarding these sentient beings, kind of have so much kind of like invested in relieving them of the suffering that we think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering, may that be the case, I will do that for them. And then, oh Guru, Buddha, please bless me to be able to do so. How wonderful if all sentient beings have happiness in the cause of happiness. May they have that. I will see to it. Oh Guru, Buddha, please bless me to be able to make this so. And so we go through the four immeasurables to kind of set our motivation right.
What the conversion, what the lesson, and then I took a tumbe chingle up to say, and tumbe Kuson Tole, and to Zenanga, Pam, round around some Jatam, Chimone, Marshina, Tomame, Divada, Tipati, Macha, Johnny, Casota, what did the Jones, what the conversion, what did the
And it would be also good that in response to our kind of like promise and our determination in reciting and in bringing to mind the four immeasurables, that the Buddhas respond in that light rays, in the descending nectar light kind of meditation, where light rays come from the Buddhas and enter into ourselves and all sentient beings all around us, purifying all negativities that we've accumulated since beginning this time.
What the lesson? And the Shika so the Marazo Tomaramina Comtagina, what that is Comta, and the Tagana Shika, yeah, Lamri me go to the Tony. And the Chicas Quashini Tetsuna, Shumiluga Sunju, and Compassion, what that did the set up. And what that Yams Lagina, what that Tagana Shika Chicaso the Chica, yeah, Society Junction the chicken, not Society Junction, what that in the church and what the do the social that get you about that give us a social chasm set up in Guru, brought Lamley Swan church chasm set. Did they give Majo in by the good you noble leaks and don't but to go set up, don't but then do some Sanja Tamjaka Tani Den. What did the Senator come down? You good what did the ship?
And also then that it's possible here that when we have time, we can actually do a glance meditation on all the different subjects of the graduated path teachings, from how to relate correctly to a spiritual teacher right on up. And that is also included in that, of course, is the possibility of doing lots of purification and purification of negativities and accumulation of merit activities in relation to the figure in the merit field. This can be, the entire merit field, as is often described within the Lamrim or the graduated path context, or the single figure as we are doing here, but to see that figure of the Buddha as the embodiment of all enlightened beings. And it's very important, a very kind of effective means by which then we can actually use the merit field to engage in such purification of negativities and accumulation of merit.
What is it? Or that Rangi Tungi Nagalti Comship and Ane, and the comi that what Takacha Comship and Takaja or the Seche, Casola, that Juju should say, or that what Kanja Juju Shingdilla and to some channel, Kovakari Chesuna, and Tassimja Tamjaka and Tomashaja never commanded to be cheto. Dichedo, me dichedo. What that Juju should, because of some comto what is check.
And so that here we're visualizing the figure of the Buddha in the space in front of us, whilst we are listening to and studying the Bodhisattva's way of life. And of course, the objective of listening to and studying the Bodhisattva's way of life is that we can emulate this figure that we are visualizing to attain that state of enlightenment. Again, conviction in the whole idea of enlightenment itself. The Gyatang Nishu Zapke. The Gila can also the Niba. Kewa Chupala, Kebala Chavala.
Ganja Dada de Sheshinge, that Rangla and the Chicaso de Rota, because of the Mikewe, and Nomon to get there, around New York. Roche Kelleman Keja Yomare. Nomon so the care on the Che Kelling in a Che Kemala Kanaka, Makiba Chang. Nomon Kiamoto. And Makiba Rota, a little Kiawachima Kajala, some Matana, Sedilla Chamlama in there, Negaptara in there, Nomon Kiamoto, Makibu the Singer Sukan Yomare. Or not quarter to Kibu the Singer Sukan Yomarwa, or and it should look in a Kabayomata, Nomon Singer, the Chipajara, Tangara, Tangomati Nomore. Tangoma the Nomon, but in the time Nomon might give a cheto, and that's because of the Nomon, the Nugas lovers and paying about Nomon, water, and Nomon can just kick it to. Can they top Kawashim, top Kawashim, Marazoge, Caso the Jordan Chasa, Nomon on the Twisha, and about the Tomama, Twisha, I call Nomon can name the hot top Kawaja Yon data. Yon did it, Nomon data, Maya Tashi, and it Rangel Lunga, Yusum Denata, can let's check who do. And it did that top Kabaton, that Konazo, Geshe she was La Tabuge, and Konazo Yamu with Denata, no more my give a tablet, let's check who do. Want to tell us later, tell us some of the tango, tell us some of the tango, Yamu to a telephone Yorba. How do the Tamu, Semja Tamja, Sanja, Gomba to gain, Janus, the Chovala, Yaman, chicken, second ticket, and some of the Tende, Toko, Dimato, and also some of the one she young to go and do. Some of the one is young at Javala, or Digger can go to a top Chabachan. No more Nubaka, don't you want to shake Naransuga, no more Kamachu at Tola, Nuba Tennis turn to us Bogus. Tingel Takasona. Tata Katutos. What that is so the any Nesuma Gudota, then there is some. Then you were Gawatuba Kavas that. Rota Yomonga coach Gawa too much or Gawa Nukan Yorwa. That is a Gawa to a top Chava Karis Yorwa. Roa Penachavaina, Shinga Jovina, Shinga Tana, Shinga Yovana, Shingala, Sama Kawana, and a Loto Kejumarwa. Loto to get Sak kept Waina, and a Loto the Abuke Marwa, Chebu Abuke Marwa. Tagani Shinge, Nomongi Kavaina, and Sanje Kombag Loto Gere to get the Tuchumarwa. They'll never take it one. What I didn't judge and that did not rebeg Yamum Yebeg, and it would tambachi, what I did less go to dust. And it let up the less go to dust, and then Konazuka, Tigmat. That and the council by what the Geshe was like, understand what I never give out to a Kavachavala Sumja. And a Tamewe Kunju, Casada Tamewe Kunju, Seven Chawa, Shenda Drobe Kunju, Kanamato, Mevala, Kavachawa, Kosunge, Le Cheve, Jawala Kavachawa was such a soon going to what the chat.
And so this chapter that we are discussing at the moment is the chapter known as the protection of mindfulness. And so why, what is it that we're protecting ourselves from? We're protecting ourselves from non-virtue, from the mental afflictions. And so it's kind of very plainly saying here that, you know, these are mental afflictions are a reality that we have to face up to, and we have to deal with. Whether or not we accept the spiritual tradition or not is irrelevant. The mental afflictions will cause us suffering, and so this is on unhappiness, and in you know, not just in the future but in this life, of course. And it's kind of like, you know, when the mental afflictions are present, we are in a state of a disturbed state of mind, an unhappy state of mind. And nobody can ever say, you know, oh, because I am angry, therefore I am happy. This is not a kind of an equation that holds any water. Everybody kind of knows that anger is kind of something that brings on happiness, not just to others, but to ourselves as well. But it's not enough just to kind of rest easy in knowing that the mental afflictions are a reality, but rather we have to get really skillful in finding out the causes of these mental afflictions. What causes these disturbing states of mind to arise? And so this brings about this particular outline that we are looking at here is in order to establish or accumulate virtue, how we can get expertise, how we can become really skillful. And so this is the main objective here in Shantideva, producing these many verses in relation to this. And so we know we have been kind of really dominated by mental afflictions since beginningless time, that we have engaged in mental affliction through the three doors of our activity, through body, speech, and mind. And so this is where Shantideva really concentrates on. Right, the nitty-gritty of what is it you should do with your body, speech, and mind. How is it that you should present your body, speech, and mind to the world in order to not engage in mental affliction, to protect yourself from that? And so here he says you really have to, and he's speaking here, of course, from experience. You know, when this is the situation, this is what you should do. When that is the situation, then this is the way you adjust your body, speech, and mind. And so it's kind of like really kind of giving us the thinking that we should engage in to be able to prevent the mental afflictions having influence over us. But it's also saying really, you know, it's not just enough to know this, you have to put it into a practice. You have to make it a reality in your own lives and really integrate it. So this is kind of saying here too, that, you know, when you have a farm situation, a field, and the soil is not well prepared, you don't, you know, do the necessities or necessaries with regard to the field or the soil, then you can't expect a bountiful harvest from that particular field. In the same way here, we have to really study the mental afflictions to understand their causes, to kind of eradicate them, to prevent the mental afflictions having any influence over our lives. Because we, in the process, kind of, if we are harboring mental affliction, it's extremely difficult to establish the virtue that can act as the causes to attain enlightenment. So the following three subheadings look at this particular means, the skillful means or the expertise necessary in order to accumulate virtue. The first one is really how to, the practices whereby we set ourselves for all mundane activities. And secondly, when we are in company with others, how we can become expert at avoiding unskillful acts. And thirdly, how to become skillful in all actions of body, speech, and mind.
nga라도 셀라 마데바 알리 취업하시는 초거나 두고 말와 셀라 때는 초고도와 셀라 때는 초고도 아니 당가라서 그거 양고 전에 다들 이뭐 인상 아니 셀라 때는 초고도 거기 미션다 심제 셀라 제와지 차온 거다 다 제와지 차온데 취업도 좀 봐. 다 랑게 꾸는 심제 탐제 산제 고마 주베 그다 지금 미유 샤게 지만나 다들 국업 양고 최주요 고급 양보 주로 다들 고급도 센터 받잖아. 다들 가서래 지금 녀모라 고급 맞아 왔지. 아니 지 계획 초게 아니 두비에게 아니 고급을 파신 전다 배주 당다도 송구요 봐. 배주 당다 송구요. 다들 이제 다 니바디 가서 뭐지? 들 숨잖다. 탐에 군주 잡아서 들어와 탐에 군주 지다 증거도 저다데 아니 남쪽에 지단계 내다 되게 군주 되게 심제 셀라 제바 심제 생게 로라 봐마치 심제 셀라 로라 마바는 건데 편바 좀 두고 말아 봐 랑게 되어야 좀 두고 말아 생게 되어야 좀 두고 말아 봐 다들 셀라 편바 좀 근데 아니 심제 디 안치 가서 심제 디 가서다 지금 요쪽을 터내면 해 봤잖아요 나가서 고거다 해쳐도 남쪽 약부 때문에 맞자 심 딩네들 편바 좀 해쳐도 심제 디 쳐도 아니 다 랑게 룽아 이솜 아니 편바 주베지 제원도 가서 제발라 아니 셈제데 이동화지 통으로 와 이동화지 통인데 아니 셈제데 아니 가서다 제 통은 아니 셈제데 랑라 가서다 지가 가서래 운에 전에 지금 되게 좀 레버데 운에 셈딩 가라 펜바 주고도 삼세도 거 이제 실리거든 와 안들 펜바 주에 고급 야가 최주에 고급 야가 연구와 왔다 될레제도 된데 인도 다 가져다 된데 인도 다 가져 탐에 외워서 군주 제바들라 숨잖아现在特别菜他想把的米想把的特别菜那个是几股的那要这老是多连这边菜连的怕当然说个菜那个是几股的那在就把是300棍的就把找我是他感觉我在就把300棍的就把这股的是超可能因为的就把300棍的就把这股的说我等着300棍的说讲我等着
So the following verses deal in a kind of a general way, really, of all of our kind of general activities, that we try to sustain the concept of how much we are reliant on all other sentient beings. That they are kind of a vital part of our path to enlightenment, and so it's kind of very important then that we kind of really develop a very close connection with all other sentient beings. And so it's kind of like important there that we are motivated at the outset to kind of really see that every interaction I have with any other sentient being is a wonderful opportunity for me to lay down the causes for enlightenment. And so it's then that will more than likely then allow you to take that opportunity at every interaction. And also, crucially, it doesn't give any opportunity for mental affliction to have any part in that interaction. So it's very, very important that we are kind of motivated from the very outset, deep down, with this virtuous intent. And so that kind of also is all about really establishing all other sentient beings, like whoever we possibly could meet, in as somebody with whom we have a sense of affection, a sense of real love, a sense of real appreciation, somebody in whom we really empathize, that they are the source of any benefit I can engage in. And that's not something that is kind of paying lip service to, but really deep down, we already have this sense of deep connection with any possible person that we're going to meet. And that, I'll do everything I can with my body, speech, mind to ensure that interaction is going to be a beneficial one for them. So it's very important that we kind of work on establishing this kind of internal motivation as much as possible. And so in breaking down these 3 headings, we're going to look at the first one, and that is how we should act, the practices we should engage in all mundane activities. And so these are outlined in 3 subheadings. One is what to do when we meet with others. Secondly, what to do when we are either accepting or discarding possessions, objects. And thirdly, ensuring that all our activities are done with a sense of real good-heartedness and humility.
我等了，到他等了，如果他当不得干啥呢？现在特别在其他教化似的，说他现在特别似的，说了一么的，然后现在也不特别在给这么的，说一么呢？他讲现在就一么差别教了，然后我心里刚才给我有么的，现在就已经差别教了，现在这他现在也不这个，他逻辑差蛮多一呢，他的特别前边确实永远或者有么的，但是一么在特别前边去。 对当部用完了，那个当部年终夸了，也把就年终上了当的，让夸了那些，到时间呢，我那么个身边这个的夸了，就上了当，对吧了，对了没被人家给，等这个用不多，但等这人都，但讲究个身边我都，本来军队名啊，对的，当时娘家讲的，军队名啊，对个说的，马些吧，真这哇，真说送不多，这身边让个身。 세디게 파마 계자 말아 차 토마메 바네 아니 마자운데 심제 탐자 파마 마지게 제모도 대 제바 뭐자 장게 말아 봐 제자 심제 레레가 안 파마 장레 대바 제자 아니 제베서 세대 밤에 저기 땅와 나시 아니 장샤스 아니 된대 장이나 다 가르치고서 다들 다 진대 제 쳐보잖아 딱 가르쳐 랭게가 다들 제 속으로 와 제소 다 된대 인사도 아니 샘제 강갈 이왕게 잡아서 이렇게 두고 왔다 뭐라 다 이왕게 잡아서 이렇게 도나 어느 단다게 들려 두고요 다 간자 단다데 가서다 시체베서 다 가서데 아니 제주 야 수인바 이네 내가 소소 내가 평기 계좌 가요 말에 내가 계좌 내가 계좌래 얘네야 뭐 여기 내수대 장을 진짜 막 샤다를 샤스 디자 맞아 최 약고 제신의 집안은 내가 대야 소소 편배 주고도 배나 쇠배 주고도 와 근데 이제 답답해 쉬워서 사천 버리 샤스는 제주도 아니고 아니 제가 어디로 걸다 다 자와 로스 와 자와 로마서 어디다 아니 대다 안가다现在 车其他家伙的在那让我有给他大都中国新都给朝年我送用到的周月写的送不给些
And so the context here, of course, is that we integrate these particular activities and this particular advice, not just for those with whom we are already close, those who we regularly kind of like associate with because we get on very well, but indeed they have to be applied to all sentient beings, regardless. And so it's very, very important. And that because if we are in kind of like in a discriminating way, where I say, okay, I can behave like this for certain numbers of people, but others I can't, then you're not engaged in any Mahayana activity. In order for your activity to be a Mahayana activity, you have to be free of any kind of discrimination. You are simply relating to sentient beings because they are sentient beings and because all sentient beings have been suffering and suffer. And so it's kind of important there that, we have this overall context of our being all together in this reality known as cyclic existence, having experienced it, interminably from the peak of cyclic existence down to the hell without respite, continuously. And that when we regard all of our comrades in cyclic existence in that way, we can see how much they have and are suffering. And from that we develop a sense of a kind of care for that. We have an understanding of that. From our own experience, we can develop compassion. And from that compassion, then we can go on to really, want to care for sentient beings. We can do it formally through the 7 cause and effect method for generating the mind of enlightenment. The exchange, the equalizing and exchange of self and other method for developing the mind of enlightenment, whereby we really look on all other sentient beings as our mother, as having been our mother countless times since beginningless time. And so it's kind of like, and to remember that kind of care, how our mothers have sustained us like no one else, with that tremendous sacrifice and love and so on. And we develop a sense of really wanting to repay that kindness. That this is our opportunity now. And to see all other sentient beings as kind of representatives of our mother, who has really looked after us with that intense love for countless times. And so this is the way then we develop these meetings with other sentient beings. And that in order then to have that sense of kind of empathy with others, with remembering their kindness and developing that sense of really affectionate love to begin with. And it's not just kind of like, relating to in a kind of a small-minded means, whereby, we kind of only relate to them by recalling the times when we were when they harmed us or we were in conflict. This is in irrelevant context. that we are looking in terms of beginningless time, and over all that time, our parents have been undoubtedly and unquestionably very, very kind to us. So all sentient beings are precious in that regard. So to have that sense of the preciousness of the being that we are about to meet, and from that, the natural sense of affectionate love for them is informed by these meditations. And so with regard to the actual meeting of other sentient beings, how to engage, verse number 71 states, "Now, while there is freedom to act, I should always present a smiling face and cease to frown and look angry. I should be a friend and counsel of the world."
Sanje komba duki isiyo sanje komba dude mi so de remoto mi so simje pemba dude sanje komba dude tabjere do 다디 좀 산에 가지고 뒤에 심정의 대응을 쳐도는 거 다다 미유 대다 tumbe 아는 상황 요바 쳤네 상황 요바 기대서 다도 셔라 안 좀바다 그러다 지금 남주 야고대에서는 가르스나 다까지 제가 보내 샘딩의 자와 요바 있나 아니고 가서 지게 결면 내절이 용으로 왔다 랑신의 용으로 왔다 그 지금 나가서 가서 주마되는 많이 받잖아. 랑신의 용해 치고다. 어떤데죠? 다도 다들 뒤균도네. 샬라는 좀바다 제베서 제신도 길라. 어떤데 제고서 티마이 맞아 가서 다다 탐에가 나와서 지금 소소가 나와도 딩에 나와도도 딩에 나와도도 되잖아요. 가실에 남주 두자들이 가실에 제 고고당에 아니 제 남주 주마된데 텐데 딩내다 소소게 랑진지 개변 주베지라 아니 고고당에 되게 남주 다 담아다 가서 탐에 남주 가서 쉬어봐들 용서 통다 다 네가 봐 려당전 당네 당데 안 좋았음제 탐제게에서 심제 남제 아니 자 가서다 다 지금 그래서 저 심딩게 니시 송부르마 왔다 문에 전에 그 심딩네 요즘 매바제 마에 아니 파마다고 기시스 어디 기시스 왔다 들을 제고 그랬어
So the Mahayana prerogative is to really understand clearly what each situation is in the context of the Mahayana outlook, and to practices kind of come from that understanding, to come with being informed in such a way. And so it's here that we have to, really ensure that there's no taint of mental affliction involved here. That when it talks about here, the first line, now while there is freedom to act, freedom implies that we have control which comes from being informed of the whole situation. And that means that, what arises from our heart center is kind of this natural automatic empathy with the other sentient beings. It's nothing fake involved in our interaction, and it's kind of like there's no sense of really kind of mulling over past indiscretions on the other's part, or harm that they have engaged in, or any kind of deception towards us that they have engaged in, or any other inconsiderate or unskillful way in which we have related. That here, this is all kind of seen as ordinary attitude. We have to we're moving from the Mahayana attitude here, and seeing everybody in the context of the precious means by which we can create the causes to attain enlightenment. And we are fully aware that the objective from our point of view is to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit sentient beings. I mean, the objective is to benefit sentient beings. The means of doing that is to attain enlightenment. And so sentient beings are kind of full, front and center in our motivation. So it's from our point of view, when we talk about freedom and having control, we are understanding the profit and loss of every interaction, of every situation. And it comes from this knowing the overall context here, where compassion is absolutely central to our attitude. And so it's kind of like, if we have to attain enlightenment and to benefit all sentient beings, then we have to kind of really generate the sense of compassion, of this affectionate love for all sentient beings. And so this is where our attitude and our kind of means come from. So in this sense, yes, whenever we meet another person, we do so with this smiling countenance. We already have a friendly attitude towards them, and that we are not showing any sense of kind of anger, frowning, or anger on our face, and that we are looking towards all sentient beings as a friend, being a friend and a counsel to them. It says here like a parent to all other sentient beings.
我的大概这个特别前边个俺中国找到这个俺这个告诉的恰当啊这个俺这个写吧这写吧团俺他俺让个国送个就把的他根本是白去当过多是吧他我的当土吧这的俺这讲的俺让个这个啥呀的国呀的俺这个亚马托呀的这个这告诉的三千个段度他段度俺告诉的他就土吧去当然让个五当一点呀三千个段度就土吧去是吧他感觉偏别切度让个他过来让个密的开始三千的偏别切度意思三千的偏别切度意思俺这个过去呢他告诉的俺这个原来的吧民营国差这个多大是吧俺这了的呢他牛蒙古个没这个去俺这俺广西的讲的广州的快点了告诉的他感觉这家庭怎么有吧人生俺广北都听呢俺广北都呀听呢他三节就了多这个多大顶住节的了俺家庭怎么有的但是我说这个那么就度假的当俺这个这要去接国当这个那个给告诉的牛蒙给想往前的这是快家庭怎么有嘛的吧然后苹果有吧说那我这个有的人呢俺刚才让给老人的吧呀这种的你捐的通过吧但是这个但是什么的老人的话个这呀这种这个你了原来是吃的通过去家庭怎么有没得了吧家庭怎么每个人的那个人的说是等到就会有说是有的人呢呀可让给老人的话呀这种的可捐通过家庭怎么有个的老人的话个这呀就这个你原来通过吧这东西都家庭怎么有个大了吧
So from the Mahayana study, from looking into the texts of the Mahayana teachings, it's really, all about really knowing how we can put our body, speech, and mind to work in order to benefit other sentient beings. And so that's the objective is to bring about a benefit to other sentient beings. And that means like whenever, wherever, and however, to use every possible, to think of ourselves as kind of just existing to benefit other sentient beings. That all of our actions are dedicated towards sentient beings. Even our very breath is, we're breathing in order to benefit sentient beings, to bring about a benefit. And so to bring about benefit to sentient beings. And this means that, we have a meaningful life, and means that every moment of that life is imbued with meaning. And it also gives, at the same time, no opportunity for mental affliction. And so when we talk about, meditation, when we look into this kind of direction that we are going in, to really develop these kind of beautiful qualities in order to benefit sentient beings, we see that they are backed up by valid reasoning, valid cognition. And so this means that if we continue with these activities, they will increase in effectiveness and increase in power more and more and more. This is a very important thing to understand, and to make the distinction between these attitudes and the attitudes that are mentally afflicted. That when we kind of like look into the bad actions or actions of deception and so on, that are motivated by mental affliction, we can see that these are not backed up by valid reason or valid cognition, and that therefore the virtuous side is something that can overcome the mentally afflicted side of things. And not only that, but when one gains more capacity with the mind through our reliance on the Mahayana attitude and developing virtue and wanting to benefit sentient beings, we actually begin to see more and more what is faulty about the mentally afflicted side of things, and so that we can more easily drop those actions of body, speech, and mind, because we see how unskillful they are. And so it's very, very important to understand the way in which, if we maintain this positive attitude of developing virtue in order to benefit sentient beings and all that goes along with it, will increase our understanding of mind and a capacity to be able to do more and more and more.
아니 삼회지 현재 상고 요르데 상고 요르데 이네 랑게데 가서데 다 뭐요라 랑게데 두고 것도 삼회지 현게 되어서는데 디 사이트 백다우데 랑게데 두고 것도 내가블이네 아니 지금 가서데 다 가자 지금 녀모 마게와 인상 셈베 시대네 투에 안 딜라테네 다 가져 지금 아니 지금 가서데 다 지금 가서데 자와 근데스 주바이네 아니 좀 제대로 좀 줘두에 좀 제대로 줘두에 아니 그 어디는 용대야지 아니 타도라 차차도 아니 지금 셈제 탐제거든 산제 공매 주베 체도 지원데 아니 제어데 미조다 산제 공마데 셈제거든 주고 할때 아니 랑게 되냐 아니 손이 용수 손에 랑게 되냐 다 집어 주고 봐 왔다 된자 왔다 가자 저기 왔다 가자 저기 딜레 다 랍체와지 딜레 뉴버체와지 다 매딩의 차대도 와.
So this thinking, this way of living our lives through these kind of how to say, this way of thinking is something that is both beneficial in the short and the long term. That temporarily our life is meaningful. We're engaged in meaningful thinking, meaningful speech, meaningful action. We're also here living in kind of a peaceful, we have a peaceful mind. And in a peaceful, settled mind, there again is no opportunity for mental affliction. And that we also have the assurance that all our actions are predicated upon reasoning, or backed up by good, solid reasoning. And so that gives us a more self-assurance in what we are doing. And that our ultimate, of course, goal is to attain the state of Buddhahood in order to kind of really be of benefit to all sentient beings. And we can rest assured that in the interim, while we are engaged in beneficial actions, really centered and focused solely on benefiting others, that as a side effect, we are also accomplishing that ultimate goal. We're also adding greatly to the two collections of merit and wisdom, of merit and wisdom that will ensure that we attain the state of enlightenment as well. So in so doing that, there's no greater benefit, there's no greater power of the mind than being able to maintain ourselves with that sort of attitude.
Sangye chomde deke donala danye dage goyen je shense sushi goyen do kyurs danye lekwa tuba ye kebe tori toba kyuswa da kanje jige danye dage soso ge ane jige da kacho goso goyen chade mo da shamba jige ane soso ge gonjab yongay khora mo yug nesul ko yongay khora yomares da gandes yongoresa danye dage goso soso ge ane 다니 레과티와 소소 녀몽의 상황도 마당와 전에 녀몽디 아니 저거 녀몽을 라와 마대야 전에 다 간제 저거 녀몽을 라 고송게 줘봐 담니 녀몽을 라와 마대야 전에 근데 제투기 캐봤디 아니 도리 타바다 타베 공반에 손대는 링게 안 탐적해 봐 공바부터 두두고 스타 두다데 데스 두고르면도 셴바 저거 줄어네 소소 권잡 전에 바 두고 용해 거라 요마레스 다니 소소 권레스 얘는 다니 소소 뒤뒤와 맞아져 녀몽의 상황도 녀몽 되다 맞아져 녀몽의 상황도 당와 있는 단이 다게 자차되고요. 다 녀몽의 상황도 당와 마당저 녀몽 되다 그랬지. 아니 제토가 있는 근데 제토에 캐바지 잡아 있는 아니 제 르마시도 아니 저 가서 냥송라 맞아져 토리 탑에 남네 아니 탐제 캐바 공을 봐 림기 저도가 정도도 봐. 다들 소수의 제국도면도 셴바지게 요네 뭐다 제로 제스 잡서 전에 제가 팬토금도 와. 아 소수 디모유 내주의 시바체네. 아니 cap디가 람테마도 소수가 아니 시바체네. 시바토는 귤을 개바체네. 아니 신에 녀몽라 고가마데 그만 녀몽 라바네 체네 다 라바네 시나마 아니 되는마 타라 아니 타 녀몽 바차데 잡아 방도나 아니 지금 다 땡기 디디 톱투가 지금 아니 어디 차되고 왔다 된데 임바자 소소 고연도 현지가 고연 제토에 걸어 요 말이야. 다들 소수 제고고 요 봐. 어디래.
So as the Buddha himself says in Sutra, that we are all our own protector. We need to be our own protector, and that we need to, in order to be that, we have to be, how do you say, really in line with actuality, and knowing what the actuality of the situation is. And that's it's really important that when we really shut the doors, our three doors of body, speech, and mind from mental affliction, that gives us a power, and that we're not giving any power to the mental afflictions. And from that then, that is the protection that we are to ourselves. We are not we can't rely on any external power to give us protection. That protection we can only give to ourselves by preventing the mental afflictions from having any influence over our lives. And so in this way, we can move towards the state of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And so it's kind of really this pacification of the enemy of the mental afflictions, and that to make sure that they gain no influence over us, so that we can avoid initially being born in the lower realms. Then we can assure ourselves of fortunate rebirth, and then be able to move up from that to liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. That it is no good just praying for this to happen or hoping for this to happen. We have to actually engage, we have to integrate this into all of the actions of our lives. And we have to deal with the mental afflictions at their coarse level, and then move on to the more and more subtle levels, manifestations of the mental afflictions, until we eradicate the imprints of those mental afflictions completely, and thereby ensure permanent happiness for ourselves. And it's kind of like we are our own protectors in this regard. We are the only ones who can actually do this, eradicate all of our mental afflictions.
어디래 다 뒤에서다 녀몽 그때 아니 저거 말서 교연 취재 님바서 대 뭐트고도 뭐트와라 아니 좋아 생게 때는 뭐트야 거랍니다 다들 미 남주 요가지 다른 데라 국업 약속이라도 봐 좋아 다른 데 국업 약속이라도 봐 어디래
So too, that yes, we have to look into the mental affliction, see the fault of those mental afflictions, see how they really compromise our lives constantly, and then to recognize that, and don't rely on somebody else to tell you about it, but use your own human intelligence to be able to do that. And so, when should we do that? We should do that right today is the day we should really start that, and to understand that, and to be able to change our lifestyle accordingly.
What kinds of me lieutenant this letter Kaluko Yachur, what me lieutenant Lembatele, Chama Shasana, but Selataba members, but they didn't do it. What I catch him with what the legend Takaja, Kanjan, what the legend, what the legend, Taniba, your jail, Tonechida. 소가 지다 자와라 자와려서 칠라 소바 밥주도 자다 제와 미도로 좀
So yes, that now that we have a human rebirth, this is the best possible opportunity for us to engage in this process, and that we have to understand that this is not a permanent situation, that it is due to the very nature of this kind of body that it will pass away sooner or later. So we have to take this opportunity immediately. Now, the next outline is what to do in terms of accepting or relinquishing objects or things. From the root text, it says, and this is the first half of verse number 72, I should desist from inconsiderately and noisily moving about chairs and so forth.
我对对，他刚才这个新建了那些马做的，那写了那把马月觉得，那在冲上加拉帕做下一样的新建了那把马月觉得，你这个我的那个假期不管呢，他把就给钱，我说的，他们当着的我在这看着了，但是先给这个什么一把所有的，第二个买一把就我他刚才第二件呢，我说的，但新建写了那些马月觉得，你把。他偏把钱的下我出爬下对呢，出连对呢，肯定一般人那样。我等的真的可说的，我当的这个，他刚才冲上点点样子呢，没给钱不走，是吧？是吧？他加拉下来的，本来给这些吧，人呢给钱不讲的，现在那些用来着，我等的买不起了。他刚才青年把来他爬下来，点点样子呢，他啥几个人死？可是如果点点样子，爬下的买给我讲，爬下给了牛毛给我的。아니 디께서는 아니 초계제 두자 셔서는 아니 소소길에 너무 기억으로 다 가자 지 영어 되기도 봐. 근데 충주 다 늦었지 첩다는 충주를 지내도 아니 된대 양자는 다 개침부 세고라서 가서 어디 갈리 샤워를 차그를 다 기지 세고요 말아. 어디 삽삽 맞아나 차그를 다 먼저 남주 현란 여기를 삼으셔 어디 삽삽 맞아 차그를 라데 토라 쪽으로 삼삼면도 현란 여기를 삼사시라 돌아면 도와. 개치주도 어다 현란 여기를 삼삼이시. 写了嘛六把钱的，这个说不下呀，提前我等着钱，是不有。他刚才就是他抄起来的那是穷穷是啥？点点样子的，他写了牛毛嘛钱，写了牛毛钱，说那呀，第二天呢呀，他觉得 reaction 的独家中国的话，第二天呢，让个 reaction 的独家中国的话，第二天呢，他穷穷这个，要让蒙古说的中国有吧？把他穷山那把啥啥中国的中国有了的。
So these lines are looking at how we should be mindful even over the small things, and that here it's kind of like talking about the level of mindfulness really that we should be aware of, as even kind of moving about things as small as just objects that can disturb the minds of others. And that's here it's kind of saying you need to be skillful enough to look after even the small things like this. And the saying goes like, say, if you're using the words that come out of your mouth to ensure that you are aware of what you're saying, so that it doesn't cause using negative words towards others, and then they use negative words towards you, and before you know it, you're both mired in mental affliction, and so the mental affliction arrives. So we have to be very aware of even the small things like moving about objects. And so sometimes, we generally don't think of that. We just think of, oh, will I better be careful to move this because move this gently because it might break. We're thinking of the object itself. We're not thinking of how we're moving things is going to disturb others' minds. So to have that level of mindfulness is very good, so that we don't put the mental afflictions into the minds of others. So it's kind of like, then they might react, then we'll react, and so on. So it's kind of saying, if you look after the small things, then you're more likely to have harmonious kind of living with others. And so that's even if the person that is kind of disturbed by our say moving a chair like that is not kind of motivated to speak negatively towards us or anything like that, but we have to be aware that just moving stuff inconsiderately like that could create a condition whereby others might have negative thoughts and so on, and kind of like furnish their mental affliction. And so it's kind of important that we have that level of mindfulness and care. And so it's all about too, just how important we hold other sentient beings. And that it's very, very important that we kind of really always keep in mind and consider their welfare, even if it's not apparent to us how they're reacting. Yeah. And so also to be very aware that maintaining this level of mindfulness is a virtue, and this virtue is adding to our store for accumulating the causes to attain the state of enlightenment. It's like somebody with a small amount of capital, and just by the gradual process of accretion that they can gain a large capital. And so it's kind of like for us the same, you see things in the same way.
참자 참장조도 도와주다 라바라 치즈 인데 직질 인데 쉬제 인데 전 말아서 세모 인상 묘고 섬사도 요 말인데 얘네야 비게 부터마 저보다 섬제 요바나 텐데 세 시기로 왔다 묘바게 시기로 와 대강바 라바도보다 자 시기로 와 다가자 디게 그가 지금 가서 바유 가서 시신의 손에 전바의 시신의 손에 디게 그가 로라 차도바 제네 차도바 제바이나 아니 디 차도바이나 아니 딜라 바베 아니야 가서데 아니야 지 가서데 데데게 딕바 마사에다 아니 다가네 시 섬제실은 내세 마용하다 디 가서는 랑라 딕바 사기도 스케자 말다 단데 디 랑라 딕바 사기도 내사레 세바이나 다 기부 중에 주고서 차기도 다디 뭐 셀라 내고도 디 지금 말에 삼사잖니 어디 개치셔인 말에 대바치 비추기 가서 랑라 렌다 나미가 라와마 바지 셀라 펴바 주게 호라 삼다 디제바는 갈은 묘그레 삼사 멤버체 이내 당 디제바는 갈은 묘그레서 당고 용사다 들에서 오는 것도 레 당고 아래 디제바나 안디 레냐 바상 갈은 묘그레서 거 이내 태바 침배 주거든 갈은 묘그레 삼사 맞는다 샹라 묘그도 다디 지금 말했어 생각도 랑게 되는 차대어 와
And so, for example, if we're out on a stroll or just going for a walk, we might engage in several activities that are in a way where we're unthinkingly picking up a stone and throwing a stone or something like that ahead of us, and we ourselves are unaware or don't consider what might be the consequences of our actions. But that might be stone landing, killing an insect or an ant or anything like that, a small harm. Harm accruing to some small creature. And so it's kind of like we have to be very aware that we are beings that we should be behaving in all times with all actions with mindfulness and not mindlessness. And so it's very, very important that we are aware of this. And also from the Mahayana point of view, it's not so much that we are thinking about the harm that we might suffer because of negativity, but rather any possibility of harm to others. That's what our goal is, to avoid any possible harm to others. That's very, very important. And that's so this is the kind of attitude we should carry with us.
Pemba su the pento was or don't get penguins pen this summer the shell never might give us sanke and shell pento yulwa. Rapid Ruda was a penachi no might give a day was a Pemba now a child in a day. Was some of the name might get the pento also same she says net to the human net to
And so also to consider this equation that if we avoid harming at all, that in itself is a beneficial action. And so it's kind of no harm has come to any other sentient being. That is a benefit to us. And so it's kind of like it's a benefit to us because our peace of mind has not been disturbed. We're at peace. That is a beneficial thing, isn't it?
Suba asa suba choba zangbe asa good jawala asa choba zangbe good zawa rata choba zangba sido ta ko ji kaso de sherab ge draw the choba sherab ge namje de chebe choba de so good wata what the jawala what the ta what the ko da zawala ko ya ta do milie de ta do jomjong kawa cha Kawacha, Chujajila Chongota, Dame Jaja Toy, Nomba Dube, Tube Tado Deshin Jets.
The third of those subheadings was to engage in all activities with humility, kind of acting with discretion, but it's also saying you are acting with wisdom here. Verses, the rest of verse number 72 plus verse number 73. As well as from violently opening doors, I should always delight in humility. The stork, the cat, and the thief, by moving silently and carefully, accomplish what they desire to do. A bodhisattva too should always behave in this way.
That Nigeria, that's some gesture, to coach got in the Koyan Tado, Mieta, got Jabin, got chicken, and mixing got Jabu, got dance, Jabia sort of Tagaja, Chicago, the Chickishella, Chicago, Chick, no day on Gurwata, no day on Gurwa. There's a Koyan Tado, Mieta, Koyan Tado, me, Casadon, Koyan Tado, Mieta, Mieta, Yena Yang, Yena. Yeah, but you're not in the Konchok Tabia, the Cheva, and it took a dinner on the Tegan Chica so that never you want to take it up. What? Because Yana, Nana, never knew good as not because similar, but you were good what? Or Tado, Jom John, the King by June, the start, John the Chicasola, Chick, I get out into the Nashiv in Totoche, what did the Chiyomas, June the Tati, Lutan, and Shan Kawachi would stay Chabal, Shake, Chicken, send the Tigi over the Kabu covered. And do that with this Chigures, shell pepper tree, and the Chigures, Pena Chuja, that Chilata, Chuja, Nasim Timanja Casate, 나생게 다 추자를 텐데 자 추자서는 가서데 지금 추된데 초된데 요살마 띵되기도 하거든. 한 질라스도 답에 심리라고 된다. 가자 건조가 지금 가서래 지금 가서래 근데 지금 가서래 지금 가서래 단다디 답에 야심들의 심리가 지지서 호텔지 탑겨버리 그 참고를 저도 왔다. 인다디 건조 지단데 야고 말다. 바이나 다 건조 지금 남쪽이 지단 지어로 왔다. 류부체는 잠해버체는 남잠해버체 지에지 뭐다 되게 류기 남준네 신체는 안 류부치고 그래서 뭐여 봐 안에 총근다 꾸마자가 저근데서 가서래 배 지금 미하 먹어버체는 가서래 잠딩딩 저에 지어로 왔다 잠에 잡지 좋아 이해서 안에 랑게 된 거부터 안 소소가 돈다도 주바치기도 와 추자 된도가다 남갈 딩때는 가서데 초여사 된도 딩때는 야다도 야 남에 헛가는 주셔 봐 다 소소 된도 주바치기다 주바신도 딘당신체는 두바 투베다 투바상게 좀 되야 자주 선배 따도 줘봐 대신에 자주 선배 따도 줘봐 아니 심제의 신라 진내제 매배톤에 아니 타바다 탐제 고막 미기 뒤로 왔다 뒤 전다도 주바치기도 왔어 주바치다한테 어디래 yeah.
And so this continues on this theme of this kind of level of subtle mindfulness, around the handling of doors, etc., whereby whether we're opening and particularly when we're closing the door, there's no sense that ever to slam a door, because we can see how disturbing that can be to the minds of those who are inside. And so it's kind of like at all times then we act in this way, in a very calm, gentle way. And this it goes with regard to the mental attitude that we apply to all of these actions, that we are acting, in a very discreet, unobtrusive, quiet way in accomplishing our virtues, and that there's no arrogance or pride involved here, and that we're acting we're delighting in humility in engaging in these activities. And it gives the example of the kind of like the subtlety and quietness we bring to these virtuous activities by using these examples of the stork and the cat and the thief, and the kind of means by which they accomplish, their goals. And so it's kind of about acting in their sense, like, to stalking and to act in a stealthy way, kind of a sneaking up and then just seizing, in a sense of the stork seizing the fish and so on, and the cat and the thief in a similar way. And so it's case here too, whereby we are using our wisdom in here to make sure that we are accomplishing our goals in the most subtle, undisturbing kind of way, and that we are kind of like really not causing any kind of disturbance as we engage in our activities.
칼라 딱 지금 세기 제도 답변은 야이나 지지이나 라이 탑지 이나다 탑지 지단데 어다 진능신 전에 아니 자 지단데 진능신 전에 아니 거지 찍디가 다 지금 소소 사야다 디가 라이 탑지가 진능신 도바 상계 좀 되게 아니 자주 선배 줘봐 칼라 아니 다탑 진능신 지다고 전에 아니 다 간저 저 돈다데 아니 저가다 다 가져 자주 선배 줘봐 아니 뭐 취치도 냠서 나도 어다 진짜 nang yoris what it is that got it should machina get you same chance the chicken again is that what you never do the mashe ginger so the layout you want the chabat and same chance content mache tapsi the younger one and till a guba the sawa yuna gusi yosa de la and she would get and it's a casole and it till a casole 뇌가 내가도 용어 말와. 딱 먼저 내가 구바도 자와 매체자. 근데 먼저 섬도 컨트롤 사운드 아니 지금 두자도 그걸 구바 자와 용어가 가서 구바 라사로 와. 안 당하는 시 지금 요모 경험도 그 구바 라서 딱 이제 구바다 네 연대 쉐베거나 네 연대다 되게 연대의 쉐베거나 아니 구바도 저와 요소나 아니들 마구바 디가 요구문다 다디 그거 마구베 쳐봐 고 숙정부 다위에다 진짜 아니 지 개조 숙정부 지가 그거 마구베 쳐도 고 샘진의 구바 야고디 사정부 세고 여바 이나 안티 마구바 디가 요구 말아 들었더니 요모 디가 가도 다 샘진 술라 임바네 아니 구바다 안디 디 아니 그 가서를 다 가자 사정부 세바 이나 아니 마구베 쳐도 요구 말아
So what is to be taken from these examples, of course, is the means that stork, cat, thief use, and not not the result of their actions. That this is showing how the Bodhisattva should proceed in this unobtrusive, subtle way, where you're making no disturbance, but you are accomplishing perfect virtue at each turn. And so it's kind of saying, yes, that we emulate the means by which these creatures attain their goals. And this is the way the Bodhisattva should always proceed. And that in terms of, looking at it as well, like in terms of, the kind of the Mahayana ideal, we hold sentient beings to be absolutely paramount, precious. And in the context of the 7 cause and effect instruction, we're at the point of really wanting to repay that great kindness that we have already contemplated on of our mothers, and that here we don't want any anything kind of like that would be in any way contrary to that sentiment of wanting to repay kindness to all sentient beings to emerge, such as arrogance and pride in all of our activities, like we're going to proclaim the good that we're going to do, or kind of like, really milk it for all it's worth afterwards, This is a sign of disrespect, actually, to the sentient beings that we're trying to help. So it's kind of like our mark of respect that we proceed in a very subtle, understated, humble way to kind of really emphasize how the sentient beings are so precious to us, and how we proceed with our affectionate love in this sense, because it's so well informed.
다 지금 대주 법대로 충족을 해도 봐. 다 되게 돼 용해에 먹으발 때는 용도 봐. 다 심지어 와다 아니 되게 돼 야고죠. 되게 돼 먹으발 때 마용와 이마이나 아니 딜레 누가 아니 지금 고가 다야다 세야다 아니 지금 다 딜레 내가 숙소부터 제가 먹어야 다 저번에 들어가서 무슨 뉴스나 용대도 와. 다가네 제염 다야다. 그러다 다 되게 내수 먹고지 용 되기도 와. 이거 그가 용사코나 매도 와. 그러와. 다 딜레 되때 다다 되서도 배 충족으로 와. 충족으로 와. 충족을 해야 되네. 진소양 개치 못 쓰이바 이나. 아니 처부 되서도 그 용사 딱 가서 용사코나 요 말 왔다.
So it's also to understand, this sense of this depth of respect and appreciation is such a tremendous foundation, because it ensures that subsequent actions are going to be harmless and beneficial, and this shows how we maintain the sense of how precious sentient beings are. If this is absent, we can see the possibility of deception, of anything that is kind of misuse, of abusing of the sentient beings coming into play. And we must give no part to that sort of thinking, no opportunity to that sort of thinking. We mustn't start from a position of any kind of disrespect for sentient beings. That because disrespect opens the door to harm. And that, and indeed, we can see from the news how far that harm can go, from rape and murder of other sentient beings. And so we are emphasizing the small things here. We must get it right when we are regarding a sentient being, just our approach towards benefiting sentient beings, the means we take to bring about that benefit are very subtle, very low key, understated, and that it's kind of genuine. It shows that we really have the well-being of sentient beings at heart. And this is really important to ensure that that level of respect for how valuable sentient beings are is never lost on us.
What did it? That delay you may do, but Geshe Langli Tambe, Lojo Sigama Nalola, Dan is Senjan Tamjala, Yishino will Lela, don't you do so? That would Java Zimmer show sooner. Soon to what done. What that nature chatting toy, you know, the way you can nature chatting what you toy by now. Oh, that then they and some load Rangshu young to it. The young, you know, and never the Canadian young to it. Right, that same day data time, and Rangi, Digi gets our chatting door. Right, Digi gets our chatting door. Rala, Dewa Yungore, Dunga Yungore, that is Shingsa of the same day chatted.
And so it says, like in the 8 verses of mind training by the great Geshe Langli Tangpa, that we should hold all sentient beings as even greater than a wish-fulfilling gem. And so if we can maintain that sense of, really having the whole picture in front of us, this sense of holding sentient beings to be so precious will naturally arise for us. If we are maintaining that in our hearts, how can harm ever arise, even as a thought, in our minds? So it's important that also we see that particular attitude of holding all sentient beings to be greater than a wish-fulfilling gem in our heart at all times is the very root of the happiness that we so want.
That the Junga invite any Daniel Kule Menda Shella Labasa Kasa Daniel Kule Menda and Ranley Takasa Kanda Suda Drogmese, Kanda Suda Drogmese, Daniel Kule Menda Shella Samba Tabaye, Ranley Chod Zimba Shos, or Rakaja Shella Samba Tabaye, and Kasa Danis Rashin Maria. Dan is in the will have to Dr. Kanda Suda Drobes, Daniel Kulem, Shella Tamataway, Kule Chavas much water. That Shell that Dillion the Sun of the Droba in the Sun of the Droba, Sun of the Chava, Sun of the Chiba in it, Daniel Suda Droba, Daniel Kulem Menta, Shella Samatawa, Semte Shella said Samatawa, Rale Chodo Zubasho. That's also and the Getch our city. Because nature Chaza Tonzera. And Raleigh did get our say on it, and this on the Tantaki nature to get it, Yonsa Hora Medic. Raleigh did get our much Tantaki nature to get Yontigo, Tantico, and there's some saying that again Lavan and News and Yota Kanga. And Yontigo, what I dig because of that, no you can nature Chasanje, Toyina, Koya Neta, Tabata Tamji Neta, Roa, she Neta, Lam Debe Rimba. 대부분의 제주 되게 자산이 통화 임바이나 자산이 시에네 아니 냠내 지금 제바이나 또 용사 매딩을 찾을 봐 용사 매딩을 찾을 봐
And likewise, in following that verse in the 8 verses of mind training, mind transformation, Geshe Langri Tangpa states that whoever I'm with, whoever I am accompanying, may I always take the lowest position myself. In other words, to see the other as being the more important and most important. And so it's in a situation like that too, that we put ourselves in. If we're in that situation, there is no possibility of harm, the thought of harm coming in a situation like that. And we can see how on the news, because people are not considering that, they're considering themselves to be more important, and that all trouble, all conflict, all harm arises from that particular attitude. But when we have the whole picture, in other words, we're kind of aware of the causes that lead to the goal, the stages of that path, of establishing those causes, the validity of the projection of those results, then we are in a situation of having the whole picture, and the possibility of harm, it should be completely negated at that point. It should be impossible to even consider harm, and when we have all that information.
That is a Kokasara, Narazu, Deva Dugu Yore, Dumne Dugu Yomare, and Deva Kandas Tukuto, Dumne Kandas Seguto. That year, and Rashi Simcha Tamjegi, and because the Deva Tugu, Rashi Simcha Tanja Dumne Segu. That is Savala, and she Takata. Because when you get nature the Tibetan Segu, when you get nature the Matuba Kona Sekora Yomari. Deva Dumne Sex in there. And when you get nature that, do want to, and then get the Shiba Gudwa. She needs to shake Gudwa. She needs to Mashaba, you know, she did and say, and it Nambeshun shelter, she Debanese. She Debanese, and goods of the mother don't have the bus near Gudwa. That she did it by Yinza, she did that to be a lamb to go to Lamla, Tapshini Legudwa. Tapshini, Tap the sheriff. Lam Tapshini did that to be a toner, that Jebut got us a dead at Java Yugoslavia, and Dilla Tena, and Jebut Dilla, and Sanjay Kuni. Suguda Chugus, Kuni Legudwa. What they would because they get the nature the too much on the song, but you get nature the Mituba corner to be a choir yoma. Then you might have say that too much at the Orwa.
So we begin by accepting that we all want happiness and we don't want suffering. So then we have to see, how we go about that, and how all sentient beings are in the same boat, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And certainly you look into how is it that I can establish happiness on the one hand and completely eradicate suffering on the other. And that this is the, we talk about, getting into the actuality of life. And so when we are, acting in harmony with the actuality of life, then it's possible to see about this, accomplishing that goal. When we are acting out of harmony with actuality, we can see how such a goal is impossible. And so we talk about the basis, understanding the basis. The basis is referred to as the two truths of understanding conventional and ultimate truth. And then from that, we look into the path. What is the path that we must follow? The path is the two of method and wisdom. And then we look into the goal. The goal is the two bodies of the Buddha, to attain the form body and the wisdom body of the Buddha. Now, this is the actuality of the situation. Look into the nitty-gritty and the detail of that. You can see how it all comes together, so that it's really a scientific presentation. It's a scientific actuality we're talking about here.
Sanjay could do it, and Lam touching it and Java Meva, good to a Yomari. This is a lamb touching it at Java language. Touching it at Java. Lam touching it there, then they get Sanjay Kui do Jovala, and she naturally Meva, she naturally, Dembani Yova Yinza, Demba Di Onke, and Lam de la touching Yamato, Shen Yomari. Never lam the touching it sanguine. And she did let him have one touch. Then there's a she, Dembani, she Dembani Yova Yinza, and they let the lamb touching you, then Tebukuni on the edge. What there is wrong with you?
So when you look into it, you can see how, each relies on the other for its accomplishment and even for its validity. You can see that when we look at it from the resultant point of view, talk about the two bodies of the Buddha, the form body and the wisdom body, you can see how it's impossible for those to come about without reliance upon that path. and the two aspects of method and wisdom of accomplishing the two collections there on the path. And we can see that that path in turn is impossible without accepting the basis of the two truths, conventional and ultimate truth. And if you look at it from going the other direction, you can see that the two truths have to be that which underlies, acts as the basis for the establishment of the path. And the path of the collection of method and of wisdom has to be that which informs and ultimately produces the result, which is the two bodies of the Buddha.
상당 예스겐다 아다데 다 상당 예 용에 들래 아니 상부 용당데 그래서 용부도 녀바 용당데 근데 디 림바 조당데 다 구조된바 근데 용데데 아니 가서나 뭐유기 내줄라 라완도 마두바 인상 용데게 열와 아니 가서데 담바 메바데 다 가서 시담바니스 구조되다 돈다데바 돈다데바들 레티게 도와 뭐데 레티게 도와 시담바 구조되바디야 아니 구조되바 용에디야 구조게 엔천나서 봐지 용해디야 아니 타도 아니 가서데 대만이게 나네 다 가서데 돈다 대바디 임바 인상 라 쳐담자 라운드 마투바 임바 인상 아니 차세 나서라 때네 구조 쳐나서 죽게 좀 봐. 요 죽게 좀 봐. 보다 다 되게 가 거저 아니 딜라 때네 아니 좋아 대단 되게 좀 봐. 좋아 대단 되게 아니 상복에 가서 아니 차체되게 총한데 아니 상내 상부터에 년박에 차체도 총한데 아니 가서 동에 나서 가지고 용태지 그 당번에 그 동에 이바다 대화 이바 매되게 가서 그 라운드 맞고 인사 용태기도 와 다들 이바 아니 가라서게 남주 배주 단에 아니 되게 주가르샤 디 사에 동에 주가르샤 파스 대도에 요게 그 라운드 맞고 인사 디 용태기도 와 시대라 라운드 쪽에는 탑시 가야면 와
So when we look into, conventional truth and conventional reality, we're establishing really how things conventionally exist, and that on the basis there we can see that they are existing in reliance on something, cause and condition, parts, and so on. And so that when we look into the other means there, we can see how they're not truly established, they're not objectively established. And so it's kind of like really, we can see here a whole variety of phenomena have to exist in this way. They are not objectively existing, or they arise only in dependence of parts and so on. Now, all of what this points out in the two truths, the basis here, is in an examination of the conventional and ultimate truth of all phenomena. The conclusions, one of the conclusions is that, of course, because phenomena don't exist truly or objectively, it means that they arise in dependence. And that means that transformation is therefore possible. It means that the good that we do can become better and better and better. And the negativity or the bad can be reduced and ultimately eradicated. So it means that everything is possible, and that everything arises in dependence upon cause and so on. And so it's kind of very important that this basis is kind of established like that, so that from the very outset we can see that a path and so on is valid.
And then the imbayasa that Sanjay Sumbaris, what that Desamla and Chashaya Mayimbachana. And Chicaso, no you can assume about the repair namne tell a papu you get. Repair namne tell a papu. No you can assume about it, no you can assume a rat you what you go. The imbayasa and Sanjay Cheva chess, Nala Deva the Guba you can say Yesha with the Yango Mares. Cheva chess, Serin Yoganga, Ser Cheva Cheva Jin. Cheva the Tubata and Tarwa last what the ceremony in Matachi Chicago. Tina Cheva and yet it comes at Tongaduna and a Lane Cashos. what a song with it, because of where you can get to my trouble. This will your back. To rebel and what and tell you what.
So it's very important too that we establish the facts of the matter here ourselves. It's not enough to just say the Buddha said so, or I read it in the sutras. This is not enough. It's always been the case of everything having to be established on the basis of valid reasoning. And so this makes it what it is. And it's kind of like here, the Buddha himself emphasized this many times. You know, don't just accept what I say because it comes from the mouth of the Buddha, because it's established that the Buddha said. He said you must regard it as you would when you're going to buy gold. You know, you would put that to the test. You would rub it, you would cut it, you would burn it to see that there were no kind of mixtures or no impurities in it. In the same way, you must put what I have said to the test of analyzing it for yourselves through valid reasoning to see, does it stand up to that valid reasoning?
Then is a shikari but water, shingle, or shitla tene, and a lamp gaddish yongsare, or lamp the water, lamp the dish, the Jebukadish yongsare water. You watch over Yamachosa and lamp the miluarita. Lamp the miluari.
And so too, you know, just on the basis then of this basis of establishing the basis of the two truths, one can then contemplate a path that can lead to a result. And so then we kind of say, okay, if I continue with the same modus operandi, establishing everything through valid reasoning, and then I can establish a path that is undeceptive, unmistaken. So let's leave it there for today.
Rangi doing the Lama to be said, what in the chen, that kind of ma teaching Tamuja comes on to Ari, Kawakiwa in and Tungela mother, Tunga to a Judah. How do the Chaba to Jigga Tunga the matter? Chaba to Jigga Tungela Majavaina, and it's a Casodata, then to there was in the Tabia Koramindu. That Chaba to Jig to Tunga Dile, Niaba Junior, Taka Niaba Majuna Tabudosan, what in the Kumashe, Tungera, then water, Niaba Junior Jonske, and the Deg Lotte, Rangichi Pamata Vegel Goose, some such. And that against you and the Shetchen, Chinang Chok and the Chiman, Hagdo, Simja Tamjak, the Sanja Koma to be easy, didn't Juju get Geshe Chimbi again, not the Kavatu, Sechu. Lui did it to a sem did it to a. What up? This my Chabachin and Chick. Machavachin, what I can just not there to send that near some city, nothing loga using the Suna, attending at the Kavatu. Yobaina, Yana, look at the Yana, same with the you got Tini Karaman, then what say to the money to and then money but Tagaran Kala Sem Sha. Money got Tagaran Kala Sem Shane, and then they get or the Takan because a Kacha Kasangi. What did they get? And because of what they la semsha, and then they gave a loti kachakasam give a lot tagara, and Rangichi will permit Nimaki Jaka, some such. That the name to Semja Tamjaga, Sanja Koma, you wanted the Madonna Tom the Toba Chigi, some Komashe, and then they gave a Dubati, a Rangichi was taking was to some Pandesa, Lama of Tagichu, the Kaddish Kusu to Guru Sato, Sunday, Tambuka Supe. Sunday Niveka to shoot, Sunday Subegoto, Tendushina, Sanjay Komamato, but the Jesus Sons of Kawako, Lamashaja Sangi, Sanjay Komamato, but Simja Tamjaga, Sanjay Komamato, with Jesus Sons of Kawako, and Yala to Bamenda, the Chimach, what in the chat.
And so we begin the dissolution process. And here, first of all, contemplating the fact of all the three realms of cyclic existence is kind of admired in suffering. It's not just the suffering of suffering or the suffering of change, but particularly pervasive suffering that we can't get beyond pervasive suffering within a cyclic existence. And so it's kind of like really to gain a conviction of this kind of wanting the definite emergence from this state of pervasive suffering that we must get out of cyclic existence, and that here, because it's in the nature of suffering and so on, that we establish from that mindset the lotus mandala seat on our crown. And then looking into the one who wants to gain that liberation. I want to attain liberation. I want to attain the omniscient state of enlightenment and so on. I am the one who is listening to the Bodhisattva's way of life in order to achieve this. And so that what is this sense of I? What is this self? And we look into where that such a self is established. Is it in the body? Is it in the mind? You look into that, and it's kind of like looking into that my body, my mind. What is meant by that? What is the I that's supposed to be there? When you look into the process of meditative analysis here, you don't find such a self. Never appears to one. And so this not finding, and we place the mind in placement meditation just on that particular fact, the negation of the object of negation. And from that mind of simply not finding a self arises the wisdom which is represented by the sun disk mandala seat on our crown. And then the notion of ourselves wanting to attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, the bodhicitta ideal, from that arises the moon disk mandala seat. And there, then we are ready for the invocation verse, having prepared a seat on our crown. O glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure of the Buddha in the front, in the space in front, starts to move towards us. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat. At the end of the third, we have the certainty that they will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment. And this brings a sense of joy to us, a great sense of assurance to us. And we make our natural kind of spontaneous offerings through the 7-limb prayer and mandala offering.
아니 되네 저다 양조 공부지 시에네 되게 로다 갑자기 좋아를 가버렸네 동네에 맞아 버리셨으니 아니 지금 내가 저 년종지게 공부시 아니 되게 그로데 라닝 디플마타 비치를 주소소서 안 다가리 이제 심제 담제도 산제 공부 중에 나한테 가봐도 되죠 많이 받다가는 걸 시스템샤 아니 대 아니 님의 좀 약하고 주소서 다 심제 탐제 산제 공부니 원일마다 타면도 토바지기 삼사절 로지게 안데 님의经过또 다위 좀 약하고 주소서 반대자 라마를 보지 다기 님가 빼면 그래서 구존 투조 모두 쌓듯이 수대전 담배 가서 패 선대 니베 가서 주 수배가 때려 산제 공부마도 그때 제 소소 선서 고바시 근데는 닝데 남 가서 빼마다 이제 남리 닝내선네 티가 도지 가서 생각을 가게 근데 다고도 안뜨베 생각 다이도 뭐는 스타이도 뭐는 마음을 소아스트레게 숨고는데 자매인 거 순간 오마라 바스나디 때문에 때문에 순간 오마 예다마 해도 뭐 샤만에 있었는데 이거 순간 거도 그렇지 고바시
And so then we begin to re-establish a suitable seating arrangement at our own heart center for the Buddha by again contemplating on the fact of the 6 realms of existence here in cyclic existence of being in the nature of suffering and wanting to gain emergence from that through renunciation, and that produces the mandala, the lotus mandala seat. And then through the contemplation of that self as well, looking into the I, the so-called I within the body-mind complex, and going through analytical meditation and not finding it, and just through this mere not finding, establishing the mind, which is the sun disk mandala seat. And that also to the seeing how it's necessary for me to really attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, seeing how essential that is, we established the moon, the mandala seat. And again, the invocation verse thrice, O glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here at my heart. They keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves down through the crown chakra, down through the central channel. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of a third, again, we have that assurance that they will remain until we attain the state of enlightenment ourselves, and we rejoice in that fact. Then the petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at the tips by a 5-pronged white vajra. And 3 mantras then surround that those leaves, that package. The first is the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction. The second is the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction. And the third is the mantra of dependent origination, again in a clockwise direction.
어디를 고바시 아니 되네 랑게 닝게 유소 라마 투베 오번네바티 아니 구송토레 웨세트네 로다 그 웨세트네 랑게 지원에 강대가 발라 더 웨세트네 아니 지금 토마메바는 사베 디바데 지원 켜봐줘요 소죠 바점발로 미사와 주연 정말 측정 같아 나선에서 로달라서 다 미게 주고 그 추진다 게 세디엄 생가마 디잉가마 토마메바서 디바데 디바다 제다 디바타제다 그 제가 하나만 라시 마도 하나만도 디바데 디바트 좀 장제 다고 좀소 선자제 켜봐도야다 그래 말아서 도마 먹을린 거 열다 저 소다가 도마 자주 쓰면 도마 상하게 도마데 개외다 담제데 개외다 니마 근데서 세딜라사와 생가마 대응하고 통화매만 사be 디바데 디바 근데 지어봐도 봐 장제 다고 도다 야고 쉬우 좀소 선자 니마 그거 봐 장수 선자 공부시 아니 다가 내시게 저 가서 로다가 어디를 장시 다고 줘서 다가 지금 어디를 공부시 로다가 저 파다말라마고 처음으로 조사마다 구조설을 내게 봐 담배 쳐고 법의 준도를 구와 심제를 내게 디바미 줘서 다이기보다 생기보다 전기 기도 주보다 생기보다 제서 이런 도나 토리다 답에 계속 이제 코와 예동 소리 예동 간제 줘봐 장시 다고 줘서 선사 다가는 시게 류게 나서 생기 동에 간제 줘봐 있네 안다가 중심 거의 많이 와 자론 til에 교육은 하나 탐제 받다니 뉴도 산제 학도도 뉴도 산제 고마 토말 다 교육 취지 가서 탐해가 나서 교육 탐제 딱 가나 탐제 다바라자 바시 차도 왔다 야고 쇼초소 삼선서 가고
So then from the figure within the turned lotus petals, light starts to emanate from the body, speech, and mind, and permeates through in fact, all of the atoms of our own body, from the crown down to the soles of the feet. And in doing so, begin the process of purifying all negativities that we have accumulated since the beginning of time, including negativities of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip, and malicious intent, covetousness, and wrong view. And also all negativities that have been in this life, in the previous life, and in all previous lives. All counter actions of that which has been prescribed by the Buddha are naturally occurring negativities. Any infractions of the 3 vows of Patimoksha, Bodhisattva, or Tantric vows. Again, all of those that have been broken in are tainted in this life, in previous lives, and all previous lives, and we feeling that they are completely and utterly purified. Also, all negativities, including any sense of disrespect from our parents on up through all the stages of the path to our gurus and root gurus and so on, any kind of abandoning of the Dharma, of engaging in negativity ourselves, of enticing others to engage in negativity, of rejoicing in the doing of negativity. All such negativities are completely and utterly purified. There's nothing left even at the imprint stage. That we see within the body, all physical or mental illness or potential mental or physical illness has been completely eradicated and stopped. And that any imbalances of the elements of the channels, winds, and drops are completely rebalanced. And that in particular, that which can really is the major obstacle to our being quickly able to attain enlightenment, being ordinary appearance, that is completely eradicated and replaced by pure appearance.
And then that's also should have rangi, should have Luni Yelengacha, August Yelengacha, Lama Shajas and good Lenji chicken, so the Lama Shajas and Kulu, so the should have something Yelenga, Lama Shajas and Kulu, Lenji chicken, so some the Lama Shajas and Kula. Some some such Langa Lunga is the Lama Shajas and Kusu, or Yamaku, some such the water, the red one, the Tonisum, she just so. And Rangi Nesagi Netica, Lama Shajas and Tabashi, so that they're Kumachash.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of the Buddha. And then I see my whole body, speech, and mind now as being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of an enlightened being. And I rejoice in that fact. That is something really amazing. From that arises a sense of a bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. This place that I am in also is transformed of any fault and becomes the pure land of an enlightened being.
Tara, Lama Shajasinga, Kusun to the war, Yeme to Juate, and Nala Rashimeba, Samota, Nala Rashimeba. He took a Lama Shajasinga, Fado Mebatuna, Simjig and Tanda Nebatuna, and because the tosses in one line make about comes in the Simja Tamja, Simja Redinema, Timalatene, the Datamja, and again Tajatane, and because of the Casata, Kyungi Chatanja, the Data Lama Shajasinga, Kusun to the war, Yeme Josu, some such. And you may do something that there's a net that you can't touch it. Lamasha and the Tavish to do some such.
And then looking at myself as this being is inseparable from an enlightened being, body, speech, and mind, but also empty of existing in the way it appears. I send out light rays from my heart center equal in number to all the sentient beings and all the three realms of existence. And a light ray enters each and every sentient being such that they are completely purified of all fault and transformed into an enlightened being, which whose body, speech, and mind now is inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of an enlightened being. Likewise, the place that they find themselves in is purified of all fault and transformed into the enlightened abode of an enlightened being.
Oh, that comes from the Simja Tamja, and it don't have Tamja, and Sanjay Sala cooking said, Nima didn't go to some Kawakum.
And I can really rejoice at this point of having removed all the suffering from all the realms and all the three realms of existence and established them and led them to the state of enlightenment. How wonderful is this? I really rejoice.
And it comes to Simja Tamja, Sanjay Sala Kubata. And the data so the Jawaka to what they do so the you then the Majuba talk about Pata some race and did the water, they were to the don't use my issue, some much.
And so this leading of all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment, the virtue that has facilitated that, and myself as the agent of that virtue, completely empty of inherent existence and merely imputed by thought. And again, merely imputed by thought. From that arises the sense of bliss, which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
Dada did them never use somebody, never you wanted to take a year, Dada some of the one and she would data group to make any 20 years, get the 10, and the 20 years I get the 10, or that can judge so the castle that Dewachua in it, Tunga, but the Chunga in it, the Gula to which. Rota, Tawataji gave a comato, Sanjay Comato, Sanjay Coman, Sanjay Sanjay Sanko, Sanjay Comato, the Tobagula, and Tapshi Nige. Rota, because a Janju sent the Yanta Betawa, you never tell you what that. Janju sent Majiba Kiva, give a corner of the Tony Tawa Majiba Kiva, give a corner of the period. And Rangita, Sana, Trona, Tuna, Netan, they don't. Nasa join Shiva in a data that Janju Semki, only to be shared like you, Kuru shows. Oh, 20 years to watch what don't watch it.
And so, of course, that we're operating at the level of imagination here. This is an aspiration, but we really pledge to, really dedicate all of what we do here so that it becomes a genuine cause to make this a reality. And that in so doing, we want all of the conducive conditions to be able to make this happen. We want to avoid any inconducive conditions that might thwart our goal here. That we are using every experience we have, whether the experience of happiness or an experience of suffering, that we have such mindfulness brought to each occasion, that we see all of what arises as a cause to establish the method and wisdom that will lead to the state of enlightenment. And we're dedicated to that, to being able to use the method of the mind of enlightenment, the wisdom of the correct view, to make sure that all of the virtue that we accumulated increases more and more and more. You are, Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of compassion, loving the true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drakpa, at your feet, and making praise.
Thank you.